Really, really glad we got him. And like I say, he didn't need to go into League One. He could have decided to go into the Championship, but he decided to come to Birmingham City, play for our club, and I think it's going to be a really good decision for him, and it's going to be fantastic for the club. So I'm really impressed, really excited. Like I said, for me, I said a little bit earlier, it's my final point. Out of all the signings we've made, in my opinion, I think he's the best of the bunch so far.
Welcome back to Small Heath Alliance FC, and it's a really exciting time with the transfer window open. Birmingham City seem to be making a few decent transfers, and Chris Davis is making his impact on the team and getting in those players he wants. And the saga is finally over. I think we've all felt this has been dragging on for some time now, but we've managed to get the signing of Marc Leonard over the line. So I'm going to hand it straight over to Dad. Dad, what were your thoughts when you heard the announcement of Marc Leonard joining Birmingham City?
Well, like you said, Matt, a saga that's finally over. This does seem to have been dragging on and on and on. I mean, this is one player that we were linked with right at the beginning, in fact, before the transfer window even opened. Yeah. But what I'm really happy about was that he was linked with a lot of other teams as well, including Championship teams. And he's decided to come to us, which I'm absolutely really pleased about. Very well thought of at Brighton, and it was always someone earmarked would have lots and lots of potential.
And Northampton as well. He was on loan at Northampton last year.
Yeah, well, I was going to give you some stats about that. I mean, he never made the breakthrough. Didn't play in the Brighton first team. Played in their under 23s, under 18s, but he did play on loan over a couple of seasons for Northampton. 97 games he played for Brighton. Scored 6 goals and 7 assists from midfield. But if you look at last season, the Northampton fans absolutely loved him. I think he was their player of the season, and a real hero at Northampton. And I think they would have liked to have had him back, but clearly, we've now got him. So I'm chuffed a bit. I think he's going to be an absolutely fantastic signing for us, and adds to what we've already brought in, but gives us something slightly different.
Yeah, and he seems like a really well-rounded midfielder. He seems like he can do the dirty side of the game and the graft and the break-up play, but he can also get us on the transition and fire us forward as well. So he literally seems like that box-to-box, really quite gritty centre mid. And he can put the ball in the net as well. I mean, I only saw a couple, but I saw him ping one in from about 20 yards outside the box. And I've got, again, I know you're the stat guy, Dad, but I've actually brought some of my own stats today, if you don't mind me starting. So I mentioned him being a box-to-box centre mid. So I've got a few in possession stats and a few out of possession stats. And I know your stats are going to be slightly different to mine, but we'll kick it off with this because I think this gives a really good flavour of the kind of midfielder that we've signed in Marc Leonard.
Yeah.
So in possession stats, last season he had 3,782 touches. He had 2,833 passes with an 85% pass accuracy. That's pretty impressive. Yeah. 44 key through balls, 442 final third passes, and 68 chances created. Bear in mind this is a centre mid. And out of possession, 68 tackles won, 242 duels won, which is a 60% average of duels won, 67 interceptions, 306 recoveries, and he won the ball back in the final third 28 times. I mean, if that doesn't scream a talented box-to-box centre mid, I don't know what does.
Well, interesting the stats that you've just given me, because when I did my research on the player, that's the type of thing that I was seeing as well from him. I see. Firstly, he's 22 years old, and he's a Scottish under 21 international. So he's obviously talented. But what I was really impressed with when I looked at him or looked into him was that he's one of these players that I see as very much in the style of Harry Winks. Mm-hmm. Who is almost the player that's in the middle and knits everything up. Sometimes that are not always overly obvious in games, but they play such an important part in it.
The Ben Shee from Coventry as well. Those kind of players that do that really good link-up play.
Every successful team has to have a player like that, and we haven't had that for a long, long time. Yeah. He's good, a good passer, good range of passing as well. So from what I saw as well, he can play those nice little dinks. Or he can play a good long-range pass as well. But what he's very much as well, from what I've also seen, is very forward-thinking as well. Yeah, which is definitely what Chris Davis is going to want, isn't it? As well. Absolutely. So in terms of his attributes, he's got good vision. He can see a move. Very, very composed on the ball as well. So I saw some videos of him, just some little snippets. He doesn't seem to panic either. Mm-hmm. So if he's under intense pressure, now for a 22-year-old, that's quite impressive. Because normally you get all of those attributes together when you've got a bit more experience than that. Mm-hmm. So I think we've got a real good player on our hands here.
Yeah, I mean, the fact we beat the teams we have to get him shows what kind of how well sought after he was. And I'm just going to continue the theme of his attributes and his positive skill sets. And again, I've been reading up on this, and apparently two of his biggest attributes are anticipation and adapting in the offensive part of the game. So anticipation in the context of what I'm talking about is just intelligence. He can read a game, he breaks up the play, he knows what to do, and then he can get you on the counter really quickly. And we're talking about Chris Davies, we're talking about his style of football, progressive, fast. He ticks all the boxes for that sort of centre midfielder who can do both sides of the game, doesn't he? I mean, he's going to need some serious fitness levels from what I've been watching and listening, because he literally is that in the box to box. And another one, his ability to adapt on the defensive side of the game. So, we've mentioned on a previous video, Dad, you tend to stick to your core, let's just say a 4-2-3-1 when you're attacking teams, and you stick to that, and that tends to be pretty consistent throughout the game. But when you're out of possession, you can sometimes adapt your formation and you adapt to the strengths of the other teams. Marc Leonard is really good at picking up strengths, adapting his game, and knowing where to go. And we mentioned when we signed Alfie May that the Charlton fans commented and said the key to getting the best out of Alfie May is allowing him the free roam. Not just keeping him in that centre forward position, allowing him to drop deep, allowing him to go out wide. Whatever he wants to do, that is when he's going to score you the same amount of goals. And the Northampton fans have said the same. If you give Marc Leonard a bit of freedom, he will be absolutely magic. He will run all over. And I saw a heat map, his average heat map spread across last season. It was insane. He was literally covering every blade of grass. So I think we've got a really exciting player on our hands. And as I said, he plays into that Chris Davies style of football, and I think he's going to be. I just got a feeling he's going to be such an integral part of this team going forward.
Me too. I'd be bold enough to say that, and I've been really impressed with the signings that we've made so far, and we've had some really good players. But I think he's the best of the bunch so far.
I agree.
I think he's going to be a really, really important player for us, and I think he's going to be integral to doing everything that this team wants to do moving forward. He's almost like the linchpin, in my opinion, from what I've read and seen about him as well. So I think this is such a good signing, and I'm really, really impressed as well. And one thing you sort of mentioned, but didn't say it in this way, but you were talking about something else that I've read. He can dictate the tempo of the game as well. So if there's a need for urgency, he has the ability to speed things up. If he wants the team to be slower or calm down, he can do that because he's in that pivotal role.
But that's the key to a good centre mid, is picking up the tempo of the game, because every game of football is different. Some of them are flying around 100 mile an hour. Some of them are a really slow break, kind of like come at us kind of style of football, isn't it? And you have to be able to adapt your game to that depending on who you're playing. And in League One, we're going to get some park the bus teams. We're going to get some teams lumping it in the box. We're going to get a variety of teams. And thankfully, Marc Leonard has that experience, from being at Northampton. So as I said, I think we've got a real player on our hands, and I think he's going to be integral. And because I was surprised to hear this as well, because of his age, he's 22. When you think of footballers 22, that's still very young, really. He's not scared to shout. He's not scared to get stuck in. He's not scared to give his opinion. And me and you said this about Alfie May, Dad. When we signed him, we were impressed in his interview when he said he will voice his opinion in the dressing room. And I feel like with Marc Leonard, we've got another player who's going to add to that team spirit, but also calling players out when they need to be called out as well, and being a positive force for this team moving forward.
He's tall as well. When I say he's tall, he's not excessively tall. He's 1.8 metres, just shy of 6 foot.
5'10" he is, isn't he?
Is it round about that 5'10"? Okay, so he's not a tiny midfielder. Obviously, we've just Alex Pritchard was a tiny midfielder. He's a completely different size to him, and a player that can be potentially a threat. Set pieces to help out defensively where we need to, but I've got nothing but real positive things to say about this young lad. Really, really glad we got him. And like I say, he didn't need to go into League One. He could have decided to go into the Championship, but he decided to come to Birmingham City, play for our club, and I think it's going to be a really good decision for him, and it's going to be fantastic for the club. So I'm really impressed, really excited. Like I said, for me, I said a little bit earlier, it's my final point. Out of all the signings we've made, in my opinion, I think he's the best of the bunch so far.
Because I think he's filling a gap that we massively need. That linchpin style of centre midfielder who links up the play on both sides of the pitch. And I got a quick question for you, Dad, before we finish. Who would you like to see? Let's just say we're going to play a 4-2-3-1 because that's what we played last year. I don't know. Something in Chris Davies is making me think we might play that formation as well. Let's just play that game, 4-2-3-1. Who would you like to see alongside Marc Leonard in our centre mid?
Well, that's an interesting question because I have thought about that in terms of when he was when he signed, but I thought about through our midfield, and at the end of last season, we had too many midfielders. We couldn't get rid of them in the January transfer window. But obviously, that's now been a little bit more depleted by who we've got available. And I'm going to assume as well that JJ is going to be sold. In my opinion, I think that will happen. So therefore, in midfield, the options are going to be Paik possibly, but I see Paik as quite a similar type and style of player to Marc Leonard, but that could potentially work. George Hall possibly could play in there as well, one of our young players, or even Alfie Chang. It depends on how willing Chris Davies is to give a younger player the opportunity to play in there. Or maybe Chris Davies has got thoughts about maybe bringing somebody else in there as well. I don't think Bielek would be an option for me, because I think that, in my opinion, Bielek is much better or more effective as a centre half.
I think it's no secret if you've been watching this podcast for any extended period of time, we think Bielek is a nailed-on centre half, don't we? He's a much stronger centre half than he is centre mid, because he goes past the halfway line, he doesn't know what he's doing. But you said Alfie Chang, a youngster coming through, is a good centre mid. I think Chris Davies might have his on another centre midfielder. I think George Hall for me is more of an attacking-minded player. He'd fit into the centre attacking mid, but I'm not totally against it. We'd have to see what Chris Davies is thinking. But for me, it has to be nailed on at the moment with the current squad for Paik and Marc Leonard.
Yeah, as things stand, that's probably correct. But we've still got time in the transfer window to see what bring other players.
I think we will.
So we'll have to see what happens there. But it's just nice to have this young lad into our team now. And as I say, it's been going on for quite a while. It's just nice to get it over the line, and finally now he's a Birmingham City player. Yeah,
absolutely. Couldn't agree more. But as always, Blues fans, we'd love to hear from you. Are you happy now the saga is over? I'm sure you'll agree. Every time you switched on social media, there was another rumour about Marc Leonard signing for this club. But actually, it's official. He's here. He's ours. And what are your thoughts? Please drop us a comment in the section below. Me and Dad love getting around to those comments where we can and responding as quickly as we can as well. And if you like this video, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up. And we do have an X page and an Instagram page, so don't forget to check us over on those platforms as well. And if you haven't already, please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any future content all about Birmingham City. And me and Dad will see you on the next video.